Hi guys, Pink Girly here. Having a bit of a crazy morning. I cannot get my internet connection where my computer normally sits, so I have it way off to the side. I can't see if I'm in screen or out of screen. But I have this idea for this card in my head, and I just want to get it recorded. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can make this work. And if it doesn't turn out, I won't upload it, but hopefully it will be okay. My friend Jean, my dear friend Jean, asked me to do another card video. So I have a few different video ideas in my head. And I don't know how you are, but when I have an idea in my head, I just need to get it out. So this is kind of not really impromptu. I planned it, but with the computer issues I had this morning, it just might be a crazy video. We'll see. Okay, so my idea is, well, when I go to do any project, really, I try to get an idea of the supplies and things that I'll be using and gather them and put them in a tray or the lid of a box or whatever. And so I kind of did that today. And these are things that I think I might use in the projects that I have in my mind. This particular card that I want to do today, or for this video, I'm planning to use a few of my embossing folders. I have a couple different ones of these. I was in Michael's or AC Moore. It was a while ago. Of course, AC Moore is no longer open. But these were on sale. I got, I think, 5 for $5 or $10. I forget. And they're all different. Some are flowers, some are like geometric patterns. And I thought, well, I don't really use these. I kind of forget that I have these. And I'm not a real embossing kind of person, so I don't use them a whole lot. But I do remember a gal doing a card using an embossing folder. And I think it might have been May May. Her channel is called May May Made It. And so I'm springboarding off of that idea from what I remember. And then last night I was watching some old videos of Rach0113. Oh my gosh, she is so amazing. She does mixed media, she does cards. Of course, she's got, I think, every ink pad and every stamp. She's got so much equipment, if you will. But that doesn't mean we can't adapt to what we have. Now, I know not everybody's going to have the same embossing folder, but you may have one or two that you could use and use the basic idea of the card. So what I did was I have some small card blanks, and I went ahead and I cut some paper that I plan to use, and then I cut my little white. Let's see if I've got everything in the right spot, because I have some extra stuff here that it's not going to work. Found some old card stock that I could use up. And I learned a long time ago that instead of building my cards on my card blank, I build it on, like Rach 0113 does, build it on a separate piece of cardstock, and then you just glue it down. And then if something goes awry, you're not ruining your card blank. All right, so that's the plan. And my husband brought me home some, this is very thin paper. It says it's acid free and it doesn't fade, but I thought that might be fun to put in the background of the cards. So I cut out a few of those to work with the card blanks that I'm using. So I have those cut out to the size that I want. And then I thought for the inside, I pulled out a couple of my die cuts. Now you could just use a rectangle, an oval, a circle to put my message my sentiment on the inside of my card. And I thought I would use this, being as I have my Cuddlebug right here, and I'm going to use my embossing folder. That's the plan. Let's see if the plan works. Because sometimes when one thing goes awry, everything goes awry. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my embossing folder, and I'm going to use the tulip embossing folder that I have. And I haven't done this ahead of time. Now I think my little card stock piece is smaller. Oh, it's not too much smaller. Let's see. So I'm just going to lay this in here and kind of judge where I want that to print. And I'm going to try to get it straight. Of course, I put it, maybe I should just do it this way. I'll put it right up against that edge. It still looks a little off to me. It looks like it might be okay. Now, I haven't used this in a while. I have a bit of a mess on my Cuddlebug here because I was squashing flowers. So I'm going to sit this in my Cuddlebug, trying to catch the roller. And okay, that's too thick. So I need my 2 B plates because the folder is thick. All right, and we're going to crank this through. And you want to hear that noise. And now I have the tulips imprinted on my cardstock. All right, so I'm going to put that aside because I also want to cut out a piece of cardstock for my sentiment, and then a piece of coordinating paper to go behind it. So let's do, I think I was going to do the blue. Now, as you probably, I know you can't see, I'm going to show you. Whatever this board is called that goes through your Cuddlebug, you can see mine is really beat up. And I think that's partially because when I first started doing this, I didn't know what I was doing. So my different die cuts just dug in and groove this. So when I make a cut now, if I put my paper down on this surface and run it through, I get all this crud and imprint on my cutout, which I don't want. So I'm going to cut face up. So what that means is I'm going to put my die cut down with the blade up, or I should say my die, not my die cut, with the blade up, and then I will lay my paper on top. Normally what I would do is put my paper down, put my die down, my other plate, and run it through. But then when it presses, I get all this grunge marking on my paper. I need a new one of these is what I need. I don't have it. So I'm doing it this way, and I don't think I will get the problem that I generally have. So I'm going to lay it like that. I'm going to put my plate on top. Make my sandwich. And because these are thin dies, I'm using plate B and plate C. And I'm doing this so I don't have to get my Cuddlebug back out when we're in the middle of when we start building our card. Now, let me just say to you, I have a little business on Etsy. The name of my shop is Time to Be Creative. And as some of you will know, I also have a co-op near my home that I'm involved with, and I sell things. So when I make cards or when I make anything, I usually make more than one. But generally, you probably are not going to do that. Okay, so this is how this is going to work. All right. I keep checking my screen over there. But you may need to send several cards throughout the year, and you might be thinking, yeah, well, you're doing all this, but you know what? That's just a lot of nonsense for one card. But if you have your machine out, so, cut 5 or 6 of these. Cut 5 or 6 of these. Do different colors. Well, you have everything out. Do it. If you're going to use your embossing folder, emboss 4 or 5 of these. Maybe you have a couple different embossing folders. Well, run through a couple different cards, and then you can keep them all organized in a little shoebox or whatever. And then if you need a quick card, you don't have to pull out all your equipment. You've already got this part done. Even with the way we're going to color these tulips, you have all your stuff out. Do 4 or 5, do a half dozen, and then you have them ready. And then you can personalize them by the stamps or the message, whatever you decide to put on your card. So that's a tip I would give to you. So you don't have to get out your Cuttlebug every time you want to make a card. And you might not always use your Cuttlebug, but some of you probably have a lot of really nice dies that you can use and incorporate in your cards, right? All right, so I've got all of the pieces cut out that I want. And I generally like to, that's probably not a good idea. I usually like to put out another piece of card or cardboard for 2 reasons. The glass work surface I have here is very glary. And I don't want to use white on white. Let's see. Hopefully that you can see that very well. So I got out some of my Distress Oxide colors, because what I want to do is I want to color these tulips. And I want to color around the edges. Now, the nice thing about these is that you can layer them on top of each other and they don't muddy your surface. They don't mix together and make like a horrible brown color. The colors stay really pretty. So I'm thinking I want to do some blue. I've got my Mermaid Lagoon here. I probably should have gotten out my broken glass. I think that might be a little lighter. And I think I want to do a variety of colors on my tulips. And of course, you have one side of the embossing that is deep and one side that's raised. So I want to use the raised edge. And the surface is very small. And I do have my sponges stuck to the bottom of each of my boxes. So for the most part, I do. But you also can get this, I think it's called Cut and Dry by Ranger. And you could do this by hand. But I want to get fairly close around that surface without making it a big blurry mess. At least that's the plan. So I have a couple of Q-tips here that I'm going to use. And what I'm going to do is just brush across the top of this surface. Now, if you don't have these Distress Oxides, I believe you could do the same thing with your ink pads. You may have some stays on. You may have some of the little mini Distress or the archival ink. So you could probably use those just as well. And I'm thinking you could probably use a dry brush technique and use acrylic paint or watercolor paint, because all you want to do is just skim your color across the top. So I'm going to start with my leaves, and I have here bundled sage, and I'm just going to take the end of my Q-tip, and I might just spin that around on between my index finger and my thumb and try to get those little fuzzies all under control. This is dry, and I'm just going to lightly skim over the top of this surface that's raised up. And I don't need to have real deep color. You may be able to do this with a paintbrush. That just wasn't in my head. It was in my head to use a Q-tip. And I'm going to do all my stems the same color, the green. Now, what I don't know is how permanent this is once you get it on. And then just put it on the way you like it. If you want it deeper, put on a little more. Now, they do have Q-tips, I think, that kind of have a little more of a point. Or maybe you could use a little makeup sponge applicator. And then if you want a little variety, just add a little bit more. But I'm just trying to hit that raised part of the stem. So once you get all this color on, to be on the safe side, you probably could just hit it with a little fixative. All right, now I'm going to use the other end of my Q-tip. I've got picked raspberry, I've got spiced marmalade, and I've got shaded lilac. Same thing. Just going to pick up a little bit of color. All I'm doing is just tapping onto that little color pad. Now you could do all your flowers the same. You don't really have to color them at all. You could just use it like this, you know, white or whatever color you decide to emboss. And I'm going to grab another Q-tip, and I'm going to do some picked raspberry. And you can use less product to get a lighter color. And I'm just swiping across that little raised area. My tulip. This one's really dark. Now, if you have a lot of these different colors, you could come back in with other colors. I don't know if I have any darker. I know I have another orange, but I don't know that it's darker. Okay, I'm making all those little guys pink. And then I'm going to use some of my marmalade. Now I didn't, boy, that Q-tip's really out of control. I'm just kind of twirling that in between my finger and thumb. That was kind of wild. Now I think you could think I need another Q-tip there. That baby's really unwound. Woo! You probably could put some on this. This is one of those, it comes in a sheet. I forget the size of the sheet. And then you can cut it into sizes that you need. This is I think it's called cut and dry. And you just use it like you would an inking sponge. And you could just swipe across and hit the top of those flowers. But I wanted my flowers to be different colors, like a field of wild tulips. Now I'm trying to decide. I got my other colors over here. Let me see, candied apple, evergreen, tumbled glass. Tumbled glass might be nice for the sky. I know I have squeezed lemon. Let's try some squeezed lemon. Blueprint sketch. I do like these oxides. I want that for the sky. Let me have some squeezed lemon. And you can always make it darker on one side or the other. Just not sure. I mean, really, how bad can it look? I'm going to use some candied apple. On those other little, oh look, I forgot one little pink guy here. I hope you're seeing that okay. It's really hard for me to tell today. Boy, you get so spoiled into everything working and you've got it all figured out. And then you have a day where that's not the case and it really kind of makes you crazy. All right, so we're just going to do 2 little red tulips. All right. So now I'm going to try that tumbled glass because it's a light blue, I believe. And I'm going to use this little sponge. I'm going to try it on the back first. So I'm just tapping again my little sponge, just applying very light scribbles, like a little, not a scribble, like a little circular, like you were inking the edge of your card. So I'm going to start on the outside edge first and just start to come in. Now, I tend to be a little cheap with my supplies, and I got the littlest square you could possibly cut. So move the card around as you need to. Now, like I said, I have a little inking blending sponge on the bottom of each box. Of course, the broken glass I didn't. Now, as you can see, I'm not getting this on real smooth, and I'm just really not that worried about it because it just looks like there's some definition in the sky. There's some movement with the clouds. And I'm just going to do the edges. Of course, I'm going to come back with the Mermaid Lagoon. Ooh, look at that. Now, I do have an inking sponge on the bottom of the Mermaid. So let me get my little wooden blender. And I'm just going to put a little bit of dark around that edge. And then I'm going to come in from the outside towards the card and just add a little bit of that darker blue here and there. And kind of make it look like little clouds. Okay. And then I'm thinking maybe, so it doesn't look lost at the bottom, kind of goes into nothing, I'm going to take my green make sure I put my little sponges back where they belong. Sometimes it's hard to tell what color is what once they get separated. So I'm going to add some green to the edge. And then the same way, I'm going to just ink a little bit, contour that, being a little rough. My embossing folder cut right through there. Oh, I think that looks better. Okay. Where I have my computer, I can't push the back of the screen back where I can see very well what's going on. What's going on? Now, the idea that I had is that this will sit on top of my blue paper and then sit on my card blank like that. But while I have this stuff out here, I also want to address where my sentiment is going to be. And so that's also going to be on blue. I think I'm going to take a little bit of this broken glass and just ink my edges with that just a little bit. Now you can do this to your own taste. You may not want to do that, but I think I want just a little bit of color here. Okay. And like I said, my blue paper that I'm using for my background is very lightweight. But see, I think that'll look nice. Maybe I will ink this. Oh, let's try that. Let's just see what that looks like. If I use a little bit of that Mermaid Lagoon. On here. Oh, I like that. All right. So now I'm going to follow through with that and do that on this larger piece for the front. Now, one thing I didn't get out, I have that small one there. Let's see if I can use it. I was going to use my dry tape, my, what do they call it? ATC gun. Is that what they call it? It's a dry glue. That you load into this gun, and then you can just roll it onto your paper. Because if I use white glue or wet glue, it might warp this because it's so thin. I haven't used this paper yet, so this is kind of a new test. All right, when I pulled out some different things that I wanted to use for this card, of course I'm missing this guy's lid. Don't know where I put him. I pulled out a happy birthday stamp, and this one says it's your birthday. So I was thinking it's your birthday would look nice on this front of the card. Now I don't want to stamp right on this after I've done all this work, and I take the risk of messing it up. And I save all my little bits of cut off paper. So I'm going to stamp on this, and then I'll probably tear it to the size that I like. I'm going to attach my little stamp to a block. And hope it doesn't wiggle too much. Not sure that's going to stick on there. I had a smaller, here's a smaller block. Maybe this will be better. A little flower stamp on there. It really doesn't want to come off. Well, I need a little bit of water, it looks like, to clean this off, and that is a challenge. I'm going to have to use my drinking water. And hope I don't pour it all over myself. I'm just going to clean that, dampen that little stamp and see if that'll be enough to get it to attach to my little stamping block. And I'm going to use my Stays On Midnight Blue ink. I love this ink. And I always stamp off to make sure I get a good coverage of my ink. That looks okay. Of course, I've got it upside down. It's your birthday. So I'm just going to tear that there. I like my torn edges. And hopefully my little pop-up doohickeys are right here, where they normally are. Because is I'm going to pop that up off the page. See if I can find a couple small ones. Sometimes you can find these at the dollar store, but they have them in the craft stores too, Joann's and Michael's, Hobby Lobby. It's just a little foam disc that has some adhesive. I usually add extra glue because I have found that in time they kind of lose their stick. So I usually add a little. So I'm getting all my pieces together and I'm getting ready to assemble. So this is going to go on the front like that. I'll take a little bit off of the end and I will ink that before we're finished. And I wanted to also do my happy birthday for my inside sentiment. I ink that up, see how that looks. Oh, pretty good. Now I just have to remember where I threw my, there we go. And I usually do stamp on a old mouse pad that gives you some cushion. I didn't pull that out, but I find that's always a good tip. All right, so now we just have happy birthday inside. So I'm getting all my pieces ready, and I'm going to close up this dark blue. And let's use, I kind of like that Mermaid Lagoon. So what I said earlier is if you emboss 5 or 6 cards and you have your inks out or your paint or whatever you do to color those, do them in different colors. I think I'm going to put a little bit of this around here. Stamp up 4 or 5 happy birthdays. Now in your stash you may have a couple different fonts or layouts or a couple different wording. You could do get well, and you just have all of those things either in an envelope or, like I said, maybe a shoebox. Then if you need a card last minute, oh, I forgot, or your husband said, oh, I need a card for so and so, you can easily pull out these components and put a card together in a short amount of time. Now, I was going through cleaning up my area and I found this little dry tape, Elmer's dry tape. So I'm going to use this to hopefully stick down this part of my card. And I'm just going to eyeball that. I like to turn it over just in case there's anything on my fingers. So we have that ready. And then I'm going to do the same with the back of my embossed card. Woo! Little movement there. Now you can certainly use white glue, whatever your preference is. I wanted to use up this, and I'm just not sure how the white glue would react with this light weight paper I'm using behind the card. Now you can see here I didn't get any glue there. That's going to bother me, so I am going to use a little bit of glue underneath there, especially since I have that little tear. because I want that to stick down pretty well. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on the front of my card before I do my pop-up. Right? Let's see if we have enough to... Looks like we just ran out. All right, I think they're disposable. So I don't feel so bad about using my wet glue now because I've put this on my cardstock piece. It gives it a little more stability. Make sure your card's going the right way. I do like to open that up. And then you need to decide where you want to put your little greeting on the front. I think I'm going to go to the right. And I am going to add a little extra glue. I'm going to use two little pop-ups for this. And I often will get out my my tweezers because this is sticking to my fingernail. Hoping I'm in screen. It'll be a crack if I do a better job not being able to see what I'm doing than I normally do. Of course, they'll stick to the tweezer too. And I'm going to add a little additional glue. Just a little dot. It's your birthday. And then I'm going to add glue to this. Now you could certainly, if you don't have stamps for an occasion that you need, you could certainly handwrite a message or have the card blank and write a personal message to the person you're going to send the card to. There we have it. Using our embossing folder, using some distress oxides, I hope that's straight. It looks straight to me. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget, take time to be creative, enjoy the journey, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.